What is good, everyone? What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are watching for the first time, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay locked in. Shout out to the chat already who's showing love. Everyone, make sure to hit the like button. And you saw the thumbnail if you clicked on this. Very excited to announce one of the flagship shows on this channel, the Wavy Red Show. The goal of this channel is going to be a little different from streams you see on the internet. I want to be interviewing Manchester United fans from all over the world, asking questions, learning about different experiences, and what made people love the club that we love so much, man. So I know you saw the guest on the thumbnail. I'm really excited for this one, man. This United fan is one of the most well-known Manchester United fans in the world. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that. He has gone viral for some great takes that people thought he was crazy for in the past, and he was proven right. So this guy's also really helped me rethink the way I look at football as well. So I'm really excited to have him. I won't waste any more time. Ricky, welcome to the channel, mate. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, Temi, and thanks for the build up there, mate. That was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Of course. I had to do it, man. I'm really excited for this. Thank you for taking some time. I know the wife just popped up before we went live, and you're making a sacrifice here, so I want to say thank you for that.
No problem. I'll tell you. She mentioned it here. I'll tell you right now. They're not all here yet, but she's going to have 7 grandkids here soon. So don't be surprised if one of them pops into the room at some stage.
Oh no problem. No problem.
Hopefully not.
No problem at all. No problem at all. And thank you everyone who's showing love in the chat, man. We really appreciate it. I have so many questions for you. I've written down a bunch of questions, but I think the first one I want to ask you, because I don't know if people are familiar. You had a YouTube channel for about a year, right?
I had a YouTube channel, the Football Philosophy channel. It's obviously still out there, whatever I did at the time. But it was easy for it to fill me time sort of during COVID and stuff. A lot of people want me to do it, but it's so time consuming, and I appreciate the effort that the likes of yourselves and other people doing things like this. It's the amount of time and effort that it takes. I just haven't really got the time yet.
No, of course. And I think the lead up to the reason I said that, the lead up to the first question, I think I want people to know, what is your football philosophy?
My football philosophy. I love the idea of pass and move. Obviously, that's the first thing. Keeping the game simple, players having a good first touch, and players always looking for the easiest pass. Now, I've tried to explain that in the past, and I get lots and lots of people sort of saying things like, I don't want. It's boring football. I don't think it's boring football. Simple passing. If you some people might say it's boring how Man City play, but they're scoring 90-odd goals, and I hate to bring Man City up.
Of course.
They're the yardstick these days, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're scoring 90-odd goals every season, and we're scoring 50-odd. How can that be boring football? It's ridiculous. And they play it, and they do it by keeping the game. I know they've got 1 or 2 special players who do see the odd special thing. But if you, I don't watch them all the time, but I've seen some games. I hate watching them. If I'm honest, I'm jealous. Jealous. But they play lots and lots of football where they just keep the ball moving, and they show a lot more patience. That's where we're short. There's not enough patience. You need to wait when you're going to try and get that ball in behind the defence for a winger or a fullback, perhaps to cut it back. You need to wait for the right moment, and we far too often try to force it. So that's a part of my philosophy, and there's lots more, obviously.
Absolutely, and I think people, when people hear that, I think they hear pragmatism, but I would disagree. I think the base of any team is what you mentioned, right? And the base of any good team that we've seen, any of the great teams. I think people see highlights and they see the counterattacks. They see the beautiful goals, but they don't see all the things that lead up to that, right? Before those special moments happen, right? We'll talk about recent. I'll give one example of a recent thing. We'll talk about Bruno and Rashford, all those different subjects. But there was something that Bruno did in the Fulham game that he would never get credit for. I think we would give him credit. In the first goal that Xerxes scored, the way he dropped his shoulder and gave Xerxes that simple pass that led to Casemiro getting the ball, and then he laid it off to Garnacho and scored the goal. Yeah. People don't give Bruno credit for things like that, right? They give him credit for the fancy assist and the goals, but that pass, in my opinion, is what was the best part of the goal. Because it was he had to drop his shoulder, evade I think 2 players, right? And then he got it to Xerxes. So yeah, it's those little things are just things that I completely agree with you on. And when I was, I'll say a younger lad, first watching football, I didn't really appreciate that stuff. I didn't really understand that. The moments are just the moments. They're not. There's so many other things in between that are little things that make the difference, right? And the team that makes them the right decisions more often than not in a game generally wins that game.
That's exactly it. He's making the right decisions. Bruno made the right decision at that moment. Just before that, he had to beat a man on the touchline, which was absolutely brilliant how he did that. Then he played the ball infield. Look, everybody knows I'm not a Bruno fan, but I will give credit where it's credit is due.
100%.
His part in that goal was absolutely fantastic.
100%.
And I'm not talking about the beating of the man. That was a special bit, but I'm talking about him seeing that there's somebody in space and just giving that simple ball. I just wish he'd do that a lot more often.
100%. Well, before we get into more of the present stuff, we'll go back a bit. I wanted to ask you, what is your first memory as a Manchester United fan? A first game, a first moment? What is something that sticks in your mind?
I remember going to my first floodlit game at Old Trafford, an evening game. It wasn't the Premier League then. It was called the First Division in those days. So the First Division game. It was against Everton at Old Trafford. Now I was very young. I was probably about 9 or 10, and I'm not 100% certain that it was the first game I went to, but it might well be the first game I went to. It was certainly the first floodlit game. And as a 9 or 10-year-old, walking into that stadium and the atmosphere and the floodlights being on, it was a fantastic experience for a 10-year-old boy. And something that always sticks in my mind. Again, as a 10-year-old, I never ever considered the opposition players. I was going to watch Bobby Charlton, George Best, and Dennis Law. But I'll never forget walking into the stadium or being in the stadium. I was probably already in there. Being in the stadium while the players were warming up, and I spotted Alan Ball warming up for Everton, and it was the first time that I gave any appreciation whatsoever to an opposition player. As a 10-year-old boy, and I thought, wow, there's Alan. Alan Ball was in England's World Cup winning team in 1966. And God rest his soul, by the way. So Alan Ball warming up, and it was the first time that I ever thought that you've got to give appreciation to opponents as well.
That's hilarious. And that's really interesting, man. So funny about this, I've only watched one 1960s game. It was on MUTV, and that was the European Cup final. Bobby Charlton versus Eusebio. Actually, a very fun match to watch. Obviously, it's a little difficult, but I actually quite enjoyed it. Like, if you sit down and take the time, like, I don't think the quality. I think the athletes have gotten stronger. Obviously, humans evolve over time, but the quality. I think football is a beautiful and interesting game because a first touch. You don't have to be extremely athletic to develop a first touch. Some of the and you could see those things in that game then, which was really, really, really fascinating to me. If we fast forward just a bit, to maybe like the 80s when Sir Alex Ferguson was, broke through in 86. What do you remember of those like first division days before the Premier League, right? Where we're kind of in a cup team, right? We were in 11th place, 13th place, and he was struggling to kind of find his way. What do you remember of those times?
Obviously, I remember the times where a lot of people were Fergie out, weren't they? Like a lot of people are now Ten Hag.
Right.
I mean, sorry to shoot forward to the future.
No, of course. No, of course.
But I hear people saying, look how long it took Fergie, but that's no proof that another manager's going to do it right if he gets.
That's fair. That's fair.
10 years or whatever.
That's fair. Yeah.
But, so a lot of people were Fergie out. I remember that. I don't remember too much else about the years when where he was struggling to start with. But I also I also like to think back to before. I had there was some great days in the cups and that before that. You know what I mean? I was at Wembley when we beat Liverpool 2-1. When Stuart Pearson and Jimmy Greenough got the goals. So we did we had a real long spell where we were nobodies, relative nobodies, and we're going through that again at the moment, really. For a club of our size, we're relative nobodies at the minute, I hate to say. We had a long period like that, but still managed to do well in the cups a few times, and I was lucky enough to be at a few cup finals. So it wasn't all doom and gloom pre-Fergie. Some of the cup ties and cup days, beating Liverpool twice in FA Cup semi-finals was fantastic. Once in a replay at Main Road and once in a replay at Goodison Park. And so there was some fantastic days. I love those cup nights. But in the league, it was a real struggle until now. Let's get back to Fergie. So really, it's much easier for me to remember the good days under Fergie. And I don't remember too much about the struggling days.
No, that's fair. And to that point, let's talk about the good days, the 90s, right? I've done, during my time as a United fan, I've made it a goal of myself because I really started watching and understanding like football, I would say really well in college, which was right around when Sir Alex Ferguson was leaving. I remember watching the 2008 Champions League final with one of my mentors. He's the one who made me a Man United fan, but I really didn't understand what I was. I remember I didn't really understand what I was watching. I just knew it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it, right? But then I spent a lot of time doing research into the 90s, right? And what I was just blown away by the football we played. Like, the football we played in the 90s, honestly, it is some of the best football I have ever watched in my life. It is, and I'm talking about any team. I'm talking about the Barcelonas of the world, the AC Milans in the 80s. Like, it's some of the best football I've ever watched. Maybe talk to me about your experience during those days, because it must have been.
The way we played in those days, in the early to mid 90s, was absolutely scintillating football. Roy Keane came through in the early to mid 90s. We had Andrei Kanchelskis on the wing.
What a player! What a player! What a player!
Honestly, I absolutely loved him, and I was
so
devastated.
Good.
I was devastated when he left. And look, people will have a right go at me. I hate criticising Fergie about anything, but nobody gets everything right. Even I don't get everything right, Temi.
Of course.
Nobody gets everything right. And I really do think Kanchelskis was underplayed a little bit. But when he sold him, I was devastated. But because of what came next, obviously Beckham on one flank and Giggs on the other, I'm not criticising Fergie for that. But I do believe that while Kanchelskis was playing for us, I think he was a little bit underused.
100%.
He was absolutely fantastic, unbelievable player. He was worth the entrance fee to watch. He really was.
Absolutely, and I was going to mention him, by the way, because that's somebody that Man United fans don't talk about. But you can go on MUTV. It's hard to find full matches. But on MUTV, they have about 20 minutes of content for each game, which is over once you watch, I don't know, 100 of those, you kind of get an idea of what a player is, right? And I remember watching him like, why does no one talk about this guy? He
was fantastic.
The pace.
We were so blessed at the time because obviously Ryan Giggs was coming through and Lee Sharp.
Lee Sharp as well.
So I thought Lee Sharp was a great player as well. I'll be absolutely brutally honest. Ryan Giggs would have been the third choice out of the three wingers. Look at the career. What do I know? Look at the career.
Right. And I remember seeing like young Giggs. Like if you look at some of those clips, he was raw, right? He was a very raw young player. He had a lot of developing to do, right? But the likes of Kanchelskis, right? There's just the way he had the pace, but at the acceleration, the control, the way he crossed the football, the way he finished. The way his finishing ability, it was really fun to watch. And I'm looking back and, even like a Roy Keane, for example, right? I think a lot of people remember Roy Keane as an older fella, right? Where he was kind of a sitting midfielder. But when he first broke through at United, like some of those games I was watching, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy was end to end. There's a City game that comes to mind where I think we went down 2-0. and then we came back and won 3-2.
What a game that was! What a game.
And in that game, Roy Keane, oh my, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this guy is one of the best midfielders I've ever seen in my life. It is just and I saw they had the full 90 on MUTV, so I watched the full 90 like 2 or 3 times because it's just such a good game to watch, right?
Keno was one man who could dominate a football game.
You're right. And I'm thinking of the night. What is maybe your obviously the European Cup final in '99 is probably the pinnacle, but maybe what's a game that people don't talk about a lot that you remember in that time that really stood out to you?
That they don't talk about a lot. Well, I remember the game against City at Old Trafford where Kanchelski's got a hat trick. I think they do show that quite a bit on MUTV. It's a good question. That's a great question. Look, there's that many great games. I remember being at St James's Park during the Fergie years where we basically had to beat them to have a chance of winning the title, and they were a fantastic team. Fantastic team, and Cantona scored the only goal of the game. You don't see that a hell of a lot, and it was an unbelievable evening. It was electric. Peter Schmeichel, I mean, what a keeper he was, and Peter Schmeichel had the game of his life. He made some fantastic saves. I could think of loads of games like that.
No, of course.
I remember being 3-0 up at Anfield and thinking that we're going to murder them, and they came back and drew 3-3 with us.
Yeah. No, and you know what's it's funny about that. I think people are so obsessed with scoring a bunch of goals, but I look back at, some of our best teams, like the '99 team, right? The first few games of that season were 1-0s, right? We were scraping like David Beckham had to score a wonder free kick against Leicester. There's a few other games that come to there's a few other games I'm thinking of. I just can't remember the teams where it was cagey, right? But the fact is that we had a great defense. We had 2 excellent midfield, 4, 5, 6 excellent midfielders that kept the game in it, so that we could have a moment like that. And I think fans, just don't understand that. And we'll talk about that later. I don't want to get too far ahead, but let's talk about Eric Cantona, because I think that he is the kind of the catalyst he kind of jump started, this dynasty, in my opinion. What are your memories of, when he broke into the side and how important he was for us at the time? Because he was scoring. It felt like every goal he scored was just huge impact.
Just so important. Yeah.
Just so important.
Yeah. I remember the story about us signing him. I can't remember who it was now. Wasn't Fergie talking? It was the Leeds manager at the time. I think it was Howard Wilkinson, if I'm right. I might be wrong about that, but I think they were on the phone to each other chatting about a different player. And Fergie just thought he'd make a cheeky request about, what about Eric Cantona? And he was amazed to hear that they might be interested in selling him. I mean, what a move that was. And obviously, I already knew who he was. He was already doing well for Leeds. But I've got to be honest, I wasn't too convinced about him signing for us. But again, Fergie proved to be right on that one without any shadow of a doubt.
Right.
And the impact that he had, and you hear the younger players that came into the team around that time, how much they were in awe of him, really, and learned so much from him. And they talk about how much effort he put in on the training ground and how much extra training that he did, and with the ball as well. The impact that he had on the club was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and then he's definitely one of his archetype of player is, I think, my favorite type of player. Number 10, drops deep, links play, has the quality on the ball.
Temi.
It was just
exactly as I was talking about earlier. He could do the special things, but 95% of what he did was dead simple. But don't get me wrong, some of it he makes it look simple. Sometimes, in fact, I was at one game, I was just going to say, he had a sublime touch which would kill the ball, which other people might not possess. But then he would play a simple pass. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Exactly. But he had a sublime. So I was looking. Funnily enough, Leeds. We played Leeds away, and a friend of mine was friendly with the director at Leeds, and I was lucky enough to be invited into the director's box. So I watched the game from I'll never forget it. I watched the game from the director's box, and directly in front of us on the touchline during the game, he was, for some reason, he pulled out to the left, probably to find a little bit of space, and it was directly in front of us, and Schmeichel threw the ball to him. And Schmeichel couldn't half launch a ball, and for all intents, it just looked like this ball was going to fly into the crowd. It was like a rocket, and he was going past him near his shoulder, and he lifted his foot up, sort of behind himself, and caught it with the outside of his foot and brought it down into his control in front of him. And the gasps in the audience, in the crowd that I was in, it was unbelievable, Temi. I would give anything to relive that moment.
Wow.
It was fantastic.
And
it was just a man controlling a football, completely controlling himself.
Those are those little moments. Those are those little moments sometimes that, that really stick with you. Like, we're both big Anthony Martial fans. I remember the goal he scored against Watford. Where what it took to score that goal. I don't think people understand the level of player you have to be to do something like that, right? And I love players like that who just have that game intelligence, right? That have that game intelligence and the ability, right? It's one thing because there's a lot of players with ability. There's not a lot of. I don't think there's a ton of players who have that. I think a lot of players play on instinct, and then coaches kind of help them along the way and maybe put them in the positions they need to play. But some players just know where to be. They just have that sixth sense, right, of just understanding the spaces to occupy. And we've just lacked that for so long. There was a period, before our, the back-to-back, 06, 07, 08 titles where we kind of had a little bit of a dip post 99. Or post 01, I should say, because we went through on the trot, and then Mourinho came in, and Arsenal won a league and things. What were your feelings during those times where Mourinho was coming in, and Wenger with the Invincibles and we were kind of, I don't want to say losing our way. We're still a very good team, but it just wasn't really clicking in terms of the league titles.
We lost our way, really, didn't we? After Fergie left. I mean, obviously. After he left, we finished first the season he left. All the time he was there, we never finished lower than third. And then in the first season he was gone, we finished seventh. I can't tell you how devastating it was. That was under Moyes, of course. But you mentioned Mourinho. I mean, look, Van Gaal. I'd have kept Van Gaal, by the way. I thought Van Gaal was getting us playing the football. And loads of people have said to me, "No, it was boring football," but that's. I'm sure those same people, if we had all the Manchester City squad, would find that boring then. Because I'm not saying we were playing as well as City can play in this day and age. But under Van Gaal, that was the target, and you could see. For me, you could see the shape of the team, and you could see the style of play. And I believe we were going places. And
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, and funnily enough, a lot of people are talking about Ten Hag winning the FA Cup, maybe saving his job, but Van Gaal won the FA Cup and
lost his job.
What a difference in 10 years or however long it is. What a difference! And then you mentioned Mourinho. You see these managers doing great jobs, and it's the same with players. I'm sure you've seen me say this on shows, Temi. You don't really concentrate so much on certain players until they're playing for your club. Or maybe if they're linked to your club. And I think the same applies to a manager. I was dead pleased when we got Mourinho from what I'd seen of him before and seen interviews with him before. I'd seen one or two pretty audible things. You've probably seen the incident where he went on the pitch and poked somebody.
Yeah.
That's not really Manchester United,
Yeah.
But when we got Mourinho, I was really excited, but that excitement pretty soon waned. I've got to be honest.
Yeah. No, that's a very fair point, and I think for me, because this era, because I'm going to be 30 next year, but like that's kind of my 20s has been tough with watching football, because this is where I've really began to understand football, but it's been tough to really. What's the word I'm looking for? It's been tough to watch, essentially, right?
You're just 30 coming up, are you, Temi?
Next year, next year.
It's a great credit to you, mate, that you know so much about the 90s football and you've watched that much of it. It's a great credit to you, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I'm looking at this poster. I mean, there's been some positive. What I think for us, you know, and the way we like football, there's certain players that kind of stick to mind in this era. I think the first one, and we're going to talk about this, guys, is Anthony Martial. I want to talk about this because I think you're very well known for probably being his most public supporter in the world. I don't think that's a crazy. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I genuinely don't. And he was my unquestioned favorite player during his time, this post Sir Alex Ferguson era. It's unfortunate. I think his body let him down. If we're being honest, if we're being objective, I think his body did let him down in the last 2 or 3 years. He could just never stay on the pitch. But what do you think about the way Anthony Martial has been perceived by, I think, a lot of our fan base and you know, the player he was when he was with us?
Well, there was far too many fans for me who didn't appreciate how good he was when he was fit. And when that became compounded by his injuries, and I've got to be honest, I was so frustrated with one injury after another. Same things happened to Luke Shaw by now. By the way, how it happens to my favourite players all the time, I've no idea. But I think a lot of people didn't really appreciate how good Martial was while he was fit, and then once he started to have injuries, he became pretty toxic, really, with quite a lot of fans. You know, obviously that adds fuel to the fire, doesn't it? That he's never fit either. And then plenty of people are saying we don't need him anyway. Too right, we needed him. We needed a fit. If we had a fit Anthony Martial, we'd be twice the size.
Of course, absolutely. And I feel the same way. I think people he was a very misunderstood player. I think he was a mismanaged player as well. Yeah. The way he was treated by multiple managers, you know, taking his number off of him one season, right? But like him playing well, and then, you know, the likes of Alexis Sanchez coming in and he loses his place for a guy who was crap for us. He was just awful.
An absolute disgrace. That was Mourinho. I mean, I fell out with Mourinho big time over that. Martial was playing really well at the time.
Yes.
And when he signed Alexis Sanchez and put him on the wing, and I remember the game at Wembley when Spurs were using Wembley as a home ground, and Sanchez came in and played on the left wing. Martial had been playing left. I can't remember who would have been 9 at the time. It might have been Rashford even. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But Martial was definitely playing on the left at the time, and he came into Sanchez came into that team on the left, and Martial played on the right, but he didn't have a great game. Look, nobody has a great game every time they play anyway, so who's to say he'd have had a great game if he'd have played on the left?
Right.
But it's not his favourite position. You know, he plays centre forward or he plays wide left. He very, very, very rarely plays wide left.
Right.
And that evening, he didn't have a great game. And within, I think maybe the next game or the game after that, he lost his place. And up to Sanchez playing, he was our best player. It was, and then the rest is history. I think it went downhill from there for him. Really. I think that I might have the timeline wrong here, but I do believe that Mourinho, the way he treated Martial, cost him his chance in a World Cup squad for France.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it might have been that season. I might have that season wrong, but it might be that season.
No, I think you're right. Because he was in scintillating form, and you know, even with his struggles, he was still in and around the France squad. You know, like they were. I remember, was it 2021? 2021, I think he broke back into the France squad. Was getting you know, time with them, and then obviously injuries kind of affected that, and you know, his inconsistencies in getting regular game time for his club. But you know, it's one of the, I think he's one of the most polarizing players we've ever seen at the club, just in terms of the perception of, because there's so many fans I think who are like us who love him to death and think he's a top player, and then there's fans who think he's crap, and I can't wrap my head around that one.
I can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
Strong, fantastic touch, awareness, you know, looking for the right pass. Obviously, a good finisher, decent in the air, scored a fair few decent. I remember one header he scored at Stamford Bridge. It was an absolute beauty.
Yep. I remember that one.
Some of the other things, I remember, I'll tell you what, the way Mourinho treated, I can remember 2 other things, then we'll go off Mourinho then, because I fell out with him big time.
Yeah.
He took him off at Stamford Bridge once when he'd scored twice, and he was playing on the left. He'd scored twice. We were winning 2-1, He only took him off with about 10 minutes to go.
And we drew.
And the cross came in from that flank. Now, you'll never know if it would have happened, but there's less chance of it happening. But even worse than that, I was at a game at Old Trafford. Where, let me get this right, Martial was playing on the left and Rashford was playing through the middle. And they had Chamberlain on the right-hand side. What a lot of fans look at, when they look at attacking players, wingers or forwards, they only think about what they can produce going forward, but that's all they think about. They forget that every player in the team has got a defensive role in that team.
Right.
And during that game, United and Arsenal were a good side. Chamberlain could hardly get a kick of the ball. And with a few minutes to go, we're leading 1-0. He took Martial. I thought he was going to take Rashford. I can't remember who the sub-striker was, but we had a striker warming up, and I thought he was going to take Rashford off. Rashford was playing through the middle, but he took Martial off. He put a striker on, and he switched Rashford to the left. And I'm sure this would be an easy game to find on YouTube if anybody wants to have a look.
Who was the opponent? Was it Liverpool or
Arsenal?
Arsenal. Okay, because
we were leading 1-0. It was at Old Trafford, and Chamberlain was playing on the left.
Oh,
on the right.
Yes.
And he couldn't get a kick. He wasn't in the game at all. But this is what happened. They switched Rashford out to the left wing. The next time Chamberlain got the ball, he went past Rashford like he wasn't there, crossed it to the far post, and Giroud headed an equaliser. Two games there where we've dropped 2 points after the manager, which was Mourinho, took Martial off. You never know it. You never know. It's history now. But I honestly believe there's more chance that we wouldn't have dropped those points if it had kept him on.
100%.
Stupid
the Chelsea game that you referenced is one of my all-time memories as a Man United fan, and let me tell you why. Martial scored a brace that day, which was obviously fantastic. I had a roommate at the time. He was a die-hard Chelsea fan. I mean, die-hard Chelsea fan, right? He was on my channel last week. And I remember us going. I think we went down 1-0, and then Martial scored his brace to go take us up 2-0 or 2-1, excuse me. And then, like you mentioned, he got hooked. We score an equalizer. I think Mourinho gets in a scuffle with some assistant or something like that for Chelsea's side. Me and my roommate start coming to blows. We're yelling and we're screaming at each other. It was a crazy day. We didn't talk to each other for like three or 4 hours. We had to go to our rooms and separate because it was so funny. It was so funny. That was the one time. We're great friends. But that was the one time where we almost came to blows because of our football clubs, man. It's funny how those things work, man. But another player that I think is very polarizing, you already mentioned him, is Luke Shaw, right? I am a big fan of Luke Shaw. I think when he's, and I hate saying things like this, but when he's fit, I don't think there's 5 left backs in football that are better than him. I genuinely believe that. If you look back to, Ten Hag's first full season, he was fantastic. I remember, and anytime he plays, generally, I think he plays very well. Obviously, he's not the perfect player, but I don't think people appreciate how good his, just like the basics, his first touch, the way he receives ball, the way he carries the ball, right? His ball carrying ability is fantastic. The way he crosses the football, I don't think he gets the chance to cross the football enough because of the left winger he's played with for a majority of his time at Manchester United. But I think he's a proper player, and it's unfortunate. It looks like his body's failing him right now. I don't know what's going on, but talk about Luke Shaw for a little bit.
You've said so much there that I agree with. He's absolutely fantastic. He's so strong. I love the way he can just nudge players off the ball without fouling them and just take the ball off them and move away with it or pass it. The ability that he showed. Remember the goal he scored in the derby at the Etihad where he picked the ball up. I can't remember. Not too far outside his own box and ran the full length of the field and scored a goal. You're not going to do that very often, of course. It's just a special moment that I remember. But if you look at, obviously there's a lot of United fans up in arms about him having gone to the Euros, and I can understand that. But I'd like to put another angle on that. Just think how highly rated he is by the England management team to be taken to a tournament
with an injury,
just in the hope that you might be fit to play.
Right.
And when he does get fit, he comes straight in the team. Obviously, he'd build it up. They give him half an hour twice, didn't they? And then he played a full game in the final. Obviously, they didn't know they were going to reach the final when they took it.
Right.
So, but that type of thing is normally... that's something that you would do for Maradona or Cruyff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Take a player who just might be fit enough to play for us in the latter stages.
Yeah.
The way they rate him is absolutely astonishing.
Right. No, it is, and I mean, I don't know if for me it was. I think Southgate made a mistake in not taking another left back in general. In general, I think he should have taken a Tyreek.
I'm just talking about
of course.
How highly they rate him.
Oh no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100% because I rate him very similarly. It would have been good for him to maybe bring a Tyreek Mitchell or a Rico Henry or whoever it is, right? But yeah, no, I think there has been some players that have come through in this quite poor era for us that have really shown well. I think we agree on most of the players. I think we agree on most of the players we like, dislike. I'm a big, people think I'm crazy. I'm a big Victor Lindelof fan. I think he's quality. I think he's a quality player. When I say that, people are like, "Oh, he's crap. He's weak. He's this." I'm like, what do you guys not get about this? Like, he's an intelligent footballer, right? I think he just keeps it simple, and I think he has a decent range of passing. I think he doesn't make the mistake, the calamity errors we see that a lot of our other center backs make over the years. I view Victor Lindelof as someone who last season he had a tough season, to be fair, but the seasons prior I thought he could have been playing for some of the better clubs in world football. What do you think about Victor?
I like him. I spoke about him last week on a show where I said I did a little bit of homework, which I can't remember it exactly now, but he's played about 270 games for Man United. Now, there's not too many people going to do that. Not too many centre backs that we've got now are going to end up with 270 games for Man United. They've also used him at left back and right back. He did a thoroughly decent job at left back in a derby match once. I think it was played. I can't remember.
Was it Liverpool? Was it Liverpool?
No, I'm talking about against City. He played left back in a derby match and had a really good game. Like you said, he's really steady. He makes good decisions. He's got a good first touch. His passing range is fine. And I'm not going to say he's Luka Modric, but he's
right. He's a centre back, right?
His passing range is fine. I think he's a class player. People have a go about his weakness. Maybe he gets beaten in the air a bit too easily occasionally, but look, nobody's perfect. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think he's a top player.
I completely Shout out to my brother here, Triple M, and don't worry, guys. Drop your questions. I'll make sure to save the questions for the end of the stream. But just looking, I want us to do something a little fun. I've compiled this or that player essentially. So, which player do you prefer? I think I've made one based on the players I've heard you like and dislike and things like that.
So you know my answers already. Then.
No. So let me give you an example, right? The first one, Anthony Martial or Louis Saha.
Martial. Saha's a top player though.
Yeah. I was curious to hear your thought because I've heard you talk about Louis Saha and I watched Louis Saha growing up, and I thought he was a really, really good player.
He's a great player. I'd love to have seen Martial playing the teams that are as good as the teams that he played in.
Exactly. And to be fair, before Martial came here, he played with some top players in France. I remember he played with Bernardo Silva. He played with who else was in that Monaco team that he left was quality. There's so many quality. I just can't. There's a few other players that were playing. They were playing for Monaco at the time. I'll go back and I'll send you the.
Send me some clips about that.
I'll send you a first 11 of them. Yeah, it was a proper team. Another one here: Scott McTominay or Tom Cleverley.
A bit more power than that. I'd probably go Scott McTominay.
Okay. And let's stay there for a second because Scott McTominay is maybe one of the players I just don't agree with you on. And this is I think he does have his qualities. He's obviously a strong lad. He's 6'4". He's athletic, right? He gets goals. People love that, right? He has a knack to score goals. I think my biggest qualm with Scott, has been, I think he goes quiet far too often. We have players who are a bit too loud in that they just get on the ball and they make too many mistakes. And he's kind of the opposite for me, where, there's been a lot of moments where I just feel like I don't see him for 25 minutes at a time. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I know you like the dead simple players, right? I think he's not of the technical level to warrant, his place as a regular Manchester United player, if that makes sense. And if we look here, I know the comments, right? He's Napoli are in for him. Napoli are making a bid from him. And Fulham were trying to get him, obviously, before they went and got Sander Berger. But what are your, why do you defend Scott McTominay so vehemently?
Just to defend myself first. It's been blown up out of all proportion because of defending. People seem to think that I'm describing him as a world-class player or something like that. I've always defended him because I think he's a thoroughly decent squad member. And I won't say, by the way, as plenty do, that he's no good when he starts. I don't mind him when he starts. I'm not saying that we couldn't be looking for better, but I just think he's a lot better than most people think that he is. I've only just I've had people saying to me, look, when people have got a bee in the bonnet, as we say over here, about something, they don't give a person a chance. It's always, how bad was it? So it doesn't take long, Temi. I don't know if you recorded the game from yesterday. I've just watched the last 15 minutes of yesterday's game, and I know it's only 15 minutes, and I know we lost. I also know we weren't losing when he came on, but he was easily our best player. Just watch it again.
I'll watch it.
The first ball that gets thrown to him by Anana, he takes.
I remember. Yep, I remember that. I remember that.
He gives a good pass to Garnacho. He runs down the wing. He gets it. He wins the throw-in. He got us from our own third into their third.
I remember that.
Piece of action.
Yep.
He gave a ball to Garnacho that Garnacho took off him too easily in the box. He gave a ball to Garnacho that Garnacho smashed across the field. I'm going to do an Instagram post about this. Garnacho smashed it across the field and it went out for the throw-in. Every time you give it Garnacho, that's a bit of an exaggeration.
No.
Garnacho's giving it away after he's giving it him, and yet everyone's saying he's the problem.
I know. You're right, and that's to be fair. I do remember. His first few actions being very good yesterday. I did a watch along.
Did you? How did it go? Did it go well?
No, I remember when they scored the goal. I just lost it, and I lost it on Scott too. To be fair, because he was the closest man to João Pedro, and obviously looking back at that goal, it was everybody's fault. To be fair, absolute mess. It's a calamity. It's a calamity.
I'll give you a couple of things to watch for. Look, I'm not as big a fan as Martinez as most people are, but I'm not saying this just because I'm really not. Whoever the centre back is, I don't like the idea of his centre back coming charging out of the box and trying to block somebody from having a shot or a cross who's 10 or maybe not 15, 7 or 8 or 10 yards outside the box.
Yeah.
And when that ball gets crossed to the back, now a lot of people are saying where's Dalot? He's playing left back, so I'll cover that. Dalot, if you watch the start of it, he's defending at the back, so the ball's coming from the other side. So that's obviously a plan. That's not Dalot on his own. He's not decided, I'm just going to go and stand there. That's a team thing or even a manager thing, that's your area to cover. So then when the ball breaks, Dalot's the nearest man, so the nearest man has got to go and try and block the cross. It's simple as that.
Right.
So there's an actual reason why Dalot isn't in the back at the back post.
But
then you've got to ask yourself, where's your left-sided centre back? And your left-sided centre back has gone running out of the box to try and block it. Now again, the same thing applies there. If he's the nearest man, I suppose he's got to. But again, that's the team thing. Shouldn't we have people around the edge of the box who are there to try and nick the ball? It's just an absolute mess, mate.
There's a picture of like before a dinger crosses the ball, there's like 5 players around him. I think there's like 4 or 5 players around the dinger, and he still manages to get the cross off. Obviously, there's players out of position, and João Pedro scores the goal. It's just a calamity. It's just a calamity. I want to make sure I get you out of here in an hour, Rick. I know your family's with you, so I'll try my best to get you out of here in an hour. Let's I had some other questions, but actually real quick, I'll do the this or that. I know I got distracted. Paul Pogba or Bruno Fernandes?
Oh, that's a tough one. That is a real tough one, mate. I'd probably just about go Bruno. He works a lot harder on the field. I'm not a Bruno fan nor a Pogba fan. Pogba's got all the ability in the world, absolutely all the ability in the world, but he's just a wasted talent for me. Whereas Bruno, but if Bruno had a quarter of Pogba's ability, he'd be a world beater. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I'd probably just about go Bruno.
Yeah, let me make my case for Paul Pogba here. I think Paul Pogba was also a victim of mismanagement. We were playing him deeper in midfield, and if you look for France, he played deeper in midfield. But I think it's the international game and the Premier League are just.
He looks a different player for France.
When I
watched him for France, he looks a completely different player.
Yeah, and even for Juventus, but those teams used him the right way, right? Like when he won 4 Serie A's on the trot with Juventus. I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it's an accident that he was in that team regularly playing with and they had top midfield players at the time. They had Arturo Vidal was in the team. Claudio Marchisio was in the team, top player. Andrea Pirlo was in the team, top player. And they played him essentially as a number 10, right? In behind, I think it was Carlos Tevez and who was the other striker they played with? I can't remember. But they played him as a number 10. And he was brilliant because he obviously had a bit more freedom. He had 3 midfielders behind him who were covering him just in case. Because I think his weakness was his positional awareness, if we're being fair, or his appetite to go forward, right? So he had those players around him, and he kept it simple, right? He didn't have to force anything. But for Man United, we play him deeper in midfield. Right, we were asking him to do everything. He was supposed to be our main creator, our deep line playmaker, our box to box midfield. Like we tried to make him too much of everything, and I think that took away a lot of his. That affected him.
You need to have to, in order to give somebody that freedom. You need to have the right players around him.
Exactly.
Which brings me to when we signed Bruno. Obviously, when we signed Bruno, we already had Pogba. I remember being on the show. And people were laughing at me when everyone was so excited. Oh, we got Bruno Fernandes and we got Pogba in midfield. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I said, no, we won't. The two suit each other. We ain't going to win anything with them two playing. And people laughed at me.
Right. No, 100%. And the thing for France, for instance, he plays deeper in midfield. He plays as that number 6, number 8, right? And he's fantastic. He was absolute. And that's the thing. I think Paul Pogba is
won the World Cup, didn't they? They won the World Cup
with him playing in that position that we talked, a solid midfield player. He wasn't running all around the pitch. Obviously, he did fantastic things on the ball because he's just. I think he's 100 times better than Bruno Fernandes.
He's a miles better player than Bruno. Miles better. But I don't know. I just feel as though he wasted his talent so much. Bruno does at least. Look, I don't rate Bruno either, but but he just for different reasons, but at least he does try. Don't get me wrong. Even the effort that he puts in is often misdirected effort.
Right.
He goes running up the field, challenging the goalie.
Right.
Kobe Mainoo did yesterday, by the way. And Kobe Mainoo did that once yesterday, and it led to them getting a corner from which they got the winning goal. But
right.
He's a kid. I don't want to start knocking Kobe.
Kobe. Yeah, no, 100.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
But I've got to say this though. This isn't hindsight. Watching the game, I thought, where are you going, Kobe? What are you doing?
Yeah.
The ball got played up, they got a corner, and they scored from it. Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Yes, sir. And this is a question I already had, guys. I'll get to the questions here. Great show, guys. Thank you, Jay Schultz. I appreciate that. What are your thoughts on the Sancho exile. And this has been a battle I have been fighting for years at this point on the Jadon Sancho thing, because I think he's a top player. I watched him at Borussia Dortmund. Ricky, so you know, I watch a lot of football outside of the Premier League. Like I love Serie A, I love La Liga, I love the Bundesliga. And when he was at Dortmund, the first go around, he was absolutely electric. And I'm talking about, you know, the goals, the things people want to see, the goals, the assists, you know. I mean, he had top players, right? I mean, mind you, he was playing with Erling Haaland and the likes of them, right? So it was a different kettle of fish, but he's come here and obviously he's never really hit the ground. He's never really, you know, I think he's played decent when he's played, but, you know, United fans, if you're not creating goals or making
it's not good enough.
It's not good enough. So what do you, I mean, I kind of know your thoughts on Jadon Sancho, but how do you feel about the current situation where I thought he had a great preseason, and he's not been in both of the match day squads? What are your thoughts on that?
He had a great preseason, last preseason as well.
Then
was dropped out of the squad for the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
The manager's got something against him. I don't know what it is. And I just can't get this argument that people say that he doesn't try hard enough in training, but then say that he does when he goes playing for another club. I mean, can you explain that to me?
No, and
because
that's
the Dortmund. He was fantastic for Dortmund.
He was so good.
He was fantastic. Both the quarterfinals and both the semi-finals of the Champions League.
He was fantastic.
When are we going to play in a semi-final of the Champions League again?
And
you know what I mean?
This is what people are saying. He's not good enough for a team that finished in 8th place. I'm just like make it make sense.
He's absolutely miles better than the players that we're picking in those positions at the moment. He's miles better,
and he's proven it.
Like by a distance.
Yeah.
So what the manager? Look, it isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The manager needs to bury the hatchet, get him in the team, but he needs to understand what playing well means, because he was playing well enough when he was playing. He's playing well enough. It's difficult when a team's not playing well and they're getting beaten. You know, they're just not gelling together well. The player who is doing well, who's getting his foot on the ball and playing the simple passes, it has no effect. It doesn't have enough effect on the team.
You're right.
For you to be able to notice that he's the player who's doing it right. Do you know what I mean? So he was playing well when the team was playing badly. But he was the one who got launched out of the team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think people understand. You know, people understand. A lot of Man United fan base just want to blindly support Ten Hag and villainize anyone that makes ETH look bad. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't understand. I was actually at that last season when the preseason tour happened. I went to the Arsenal United game where he played as a false 9 and he played brilliantly. I thought he had a fantastic game. He scored a great goal. I remember watching and just like, wow, he played fantastic. And it's just unfortunate that I think he's going to go to a good team. I think he's going to go to a good team and shine. I really believe that. And then people are going to have revisionist history and say, well, he didn't do it for us. And the second half of last season is evidence that he's just been mismanaged. It's not. It's a club. It's a club thing.
Not to watch those quarterfinals and semifinals. He was electric, and he worked. It's fantastic, and the team shape that they've got, he sticks to that team shape. He's in his position. When the ball comes to him, he's got a great touch. It's just fantastic. And here we are. We're pretty rubbish most of the time.
Yeah.
And we don't choose him.
Right.
Mind-boggling.
Another off topic too. Marcel Sabitzer, by the way, his run. His run last season.
A lot of people say what you're talking about. He's a good player.
He's a good player. Good player.
He's a class player.
I couldn't. And in the Euros too. Sabitzer was just brilliant. I'm just like, we let this guy go.
Look, this is all on our manager. Let's be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Sabitzer's a class player. I said it many times. Watch the way he touches it
and passes it.
He don't see it.
Exactly. It's so funny. I'm just looking like
another quick back on Sancho and move on. But what cracked me up is is just think of the difference. He wasn't getting in our team. For Dortmund, I'm sure you will have spotted this at the time. He played in the quarter-final first leg. They rested him in the league so that he was fit for the second leg. Then in the semi-final, he played in the first leg. They rested him in the league so that he's fit for the second leg. He's not getting in our team, and the European Cup semi-finalists are desperate for him to be fit to play.
Right?
You can't make it up.
It's so funny. It's like. I remember because I made it a point to watch as many Dortmund games as I could. He struggled a bit early on. To be fair, he just because to be fair, he hadn't played in months and months and months. But once he got in that little rhythm and the Champions League runs was happening, and he's building on his performances, which he's never had a chance to. He's never gotten 10 games on the. He never get a chance. You know, you need to build on your performances. And once
the only way that can happen is for you to watch it as a manager and realize this kid's doing all right. You know what I mean? The way he wants to play the game is the right way.
100%.
And let's work on it and let's build on it. I was so pleased that Ahmad scored yesterday, by the way.
Because he would have got hooked. He would have got hooked.
Another one. I think he's underrated him all last season. He should have played a hell of a lot more last season.
Oh yeah.
And then yesterday, for me, Ahmad gave the ball away a bit cheaply, a bit too often. So because of that, he probably had one of his poorer games. And he kept him on right till the end. And I was so. It doesn't matter to me who scores. It really doesn't matter. But I know it matters to everybody else. Right. So I was so pleased that he scored because it makes people just think that he played well.
He played well. Scored, you know? Yeah, no, 100%. And listen, I think Ahmad's he's going to be a top player one day. Yeah, I think he had his my good. You know Adam Fahmy. I was on a stream with him yesterday, and we were talking about so many fans were talking about we should hook him at halftime because to be fair, he had a poor first half. He had a very poor first half. He made quite a few errors. He was, just not himself. Yeah. But I said, wait, we've watched people play terrible for 15
people stink the place out for months
for 20 games on the bounce, 20 games on the bounce playing poorly, and we play them. This kid has one difficult half. Mind you, he's going through a bunch with his family, all this different stuff. And
people want him up,
right. He unfortunately, and condolences to his family. Unfortunately, lost his stepmother this weekend, and all that stuff. Condolences to his family, but you would think maybe that might have something to do with him, maybe his head not being all the way there, and all these things like that. So, it's just unbelievable. Let's get into the questions, and if Ricky, if you do have a bit more time, I know the grandkids are about. I appreciate you so much. And guys, thank you for being active in the comments. This is the first question we saw. A question for Ricky. We have seen elite captains in our lifetime. Robson, Cantona, Keane. Bruno doesn't compare. He doesn't push or inspire the team like they did. I think this is more of a comment than a question. But to that point, I think I'll say this before Ricky goes. I think very similarly to Ali, I think Ten Hag's biggest mistake was making Bruno his captain because now you have no option almost but to start him week in, week out because you can't have your club captain, sitting the bench because there's going to be questions, inquests, things like that. And I think Ali made a mistake making Harry Maguire his captain when you had Nemanja Matic there and Juan Mata there and all these players who are fit to do the job, right, and good enough players. So I'll let you go there. Bruno being captain, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a disgrace, really. I think his body language lets him down. I think he moans too much. It's just not captain material to me.
No.
I mean, think of the players you've just mentioned: Roy Keane and Brian Robson and Cantona. You know what I mean? Bruno Fernandes. Some people might say who else could be the skipper, but it's important that you don't get your skipper wrong. If you follow me, you know what I mean? That's
the one. It doesn't have to be great.
The worst possibility to be
right.
skipper,
right.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't have to. I remember Ashley Young was the skipper right before Ashley Young left. He was the skipper for quite a while, and people were like, "Oh, why?" he's just a good player. He might not be the best player in our team, but he's not the worst player in our team by any, or not even the worst. He's just he's a good player.
Solid professional.
So he's just a good professional.
I'll tell you something about Ashley Young. Look, I don't know what goes on in training, and maybe Bruno leads the way in training. I don't know, but Ashley Young, without a shadow of a doubt, the young players will look up to him in training and think, I've got to do what he's got to do. And absolutely top professional. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And to be fair, I do think Bruno's a top professional. Yeah. I do think he loves the club. I think he gives everything for the club. Yeah. I think that, like you said, it's just misdirected energy. You know, like once we go a goal down, I think he loses his head, right? Everything, like, you know, because he can do the things that we're talking about. I think he can do them. I don't think he's crapping that he just can't, you know, control a football or anything, but he just doesn't. He has that. Doesn't concentrate well enough. You know, that's 100%. This is a question here, a different question. Rick's opinions on Declan Rice. I personally find him clumsy and unpolished. One of my friends compared him to Matic, and I burst out laughing. I think Rice is a top athlete, but an average footballer. I know Nemanja Matic was one of my. I really appreciated Nemanja Matic as a player. Obviously, you're probably his biggest fan in the world. It's well known. Would you think Declan Rice is similar, or what are your thoughts? Like, that's a good question. I don't know.
He's not as polished as Matic. He's not as smart on the ball. Matic is, you know, fantastic player. Declan Rice is a very, very good player.
I think so too.
Great, like you say, great energy, great strength. Not terrible at passing the ball, but you know, he's not as good as Matic at passing the ball.
Right.
Yeah, he's obviously a top player, Declan Rice, but maybe just not quite as good as a lot of people seem to think he is. That's how I'd like to put it.
Yeah. Does ETH survive past Christmas? That's a great question.
I'm hopeful that I think the new hierarchy, you know, your Omar Baradas, etc., Jason Wilcox, I think they're having a lot of input into how the team plays.
Oh, yeah.
And I know they've not all been there since then, but a couple of them were there before the end of last season. And I think they were having something to do with the tactics in the team leading up to the cup final, which ended up in us winning the cup final. We haven't played like that under Ten Hag before. So, you know, so solidly, so defensively, keeping the team so compact. This is what happened after we got battered 4-0 against Palace. It happened against Arsenal. We give Arsenal a right game at Old Trafford. Then we beat Newcastle. Then we beat Brighton. Then we beat City. And but was that just a eureka moment for the manager, or was that?
I think it was an accident. I think he slipped into it. I think he slipped. I think so. Who got injured? Somebody got injured.
Well, we had that. I'll tell you one thing that happened. Had this not have happened, look, had this not have happened, I doubt that we would have won the FA Cup. So what happened was, we only had one fit centre back out of 5, which is unbelievable, by the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was only Johnny Evans fit, if I remember rightly. So Casemiro played at centre back for about 4 games. During those 4 games, no disrespect to Casemiro, by the way, because Amrabat had such a good game in the cup final. Amrabat came into the team only because Casemiro was playing centre half.
Right.
And Casemiro was only playing centre half because we had so many injuries.
That's what exactly.
So people, I've got a really quirky way of looking at it. A lot of people are complaining about the injuries that we had, but if all those centre halves weren't injured at the end of the season, I don't think we'd have won the FA Cup.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point.
I think Amrabat had such a good game, and
he was fantastic.
All the centre backs being injured, it wouldn't have been Amrabat playing there.
Right, and I can't believe we haven't tried to re-sign him. You know, we desperately need more players like him in the team right now. We have a bunch of attack minded. We have Mount, Mainu. I think Mainu's more of an attack minded player, to be fair. I think he's he's fantastic, but I think he should be going this way more than going, you know what I mean? And Mason Mount, attacking player. So we need more Amrabats. We need, we're linked to this Ugarte guy, you know, we need more players like that who are just industrious and want to sit in midfield and win the ball back and just do the simple things, right? I'm genuinely stunned we haven't tried to get Amrabat, because I know he wants to stay there. And real quick, I'll let you go after this. obviously the most recent game. I was quite happy with the way we set up to start. I think if you play Bruno Fernandes in a team, you need to have 3 other midfield players in that team. I firmly believe that. And we played with Casemiro, Mount, and Mainu.
Yeah.
And I thought for the first 30 minutes of that matchup, I thought we pressed quite well. I thought we won the ball back higher up the pitch quite well. I thought we were in control of the game. Very similar. So I don't know if you got to see Brighton versus Everton last week, but Everton gave them a good. I watched the whole. I told myself I'm going to watch. Yeah, I told myself I'm going to watch the team that we play, the full game that they played the week before, just so I know what we're getting into. I watched the full game, and Everton were kind of on them. You know, it was a right game until that second goal went in, and then it all kind of fell apart. But we were kind of doing the same thing. You know, we were pressing high, winning the ball back high up the pitch. And then once that goal scored, we scored that goal. And then Ten Hag took off Mason Mount, which was a huge mistake in my opinion.
Okay.
Because he was the trigger for that press. You know, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's doing a job. I think the first 2 games, his pressing has allowed us to win the ball back. And we just haven't capitalized on those opportunities. We've had quite a few good chances that we just didn't nick. What do you think about us playing 4 midfield players and going forward? And we're facing Liverpool next, which is going to be terrifying. I fear he's going to revert back to bringing in. And listen, I think Xerxes is going to be you and mine's favorite player very soon. I really believe that. But what are your thoughts on the midfield players and how we set up?
The way we're setting up at the minute has been pretty similar, like I just said, ever since that Arsenal game. And yesterday is the first time that we've lost in that period. It's about the 6th game that we played like that, 5th or 6th game, including the Community Shield.
Right.
It's the first time we've lost. I just hope, when I say I just hope that he doesn't lose patience with it, he lost patience with it at half-time yesterday. Just because you're playing with those deep plays, it doesn't mean you can't get a chance to equalise.
Right,
we had a great chance to score through Ahmad in the first half, didn't we? But what fans have got to realise is where we are. I would love us to be playing expansive football, playing with a great number 9 like Ruud van Nistelrooy or Andy Cole and a brilliant number 10 like Dwight York. I'd love us to be playing like that and two flying wingers. I would absolutely love it. But it's not where we're at. We lost 19 games last season. We lost 19 games in all competitions. By playing like this, we've got to at least cut that in half.
Yeah.
And if you do, they won't all be draws, the ones that you change. You know, some of them will be wins.
Right.
I'm happy with the way it's going. I was happy with the way. Look, sometimes you're going to concede the first goal. You know, they hardly had a chance, Brighton, but they did get that goal.
Right.
I think he was too impatient at half time.
I agree.
I just hope that it's not an impatience that they will then start doing something else as well.
Right.
You know,
Right. And
I think Mason Mount, by the way, was just about our best player in the first half.
I agree.
If he wasn't injured, I think that was a disgraceful decision.
Yeah, that's why. And I'm trying to. Hopefully we'll get some news on that. But I wouldn't have minded Xerxes coming on if he took off Marcus Rashford, right? Because then you can put Mason Mount on the left. He'll give you that energy and that pressing on the left. So it's still solid. It's still we lost control of that game in the second half because there was too many attack-minded players. We were in midfield. It became a bit too lightweight.
The first 15, 20 minutes of the half, we could hardly get the ball. In the first half, it was dead even. We had good spells. They had some good spells.
Right.
In the first 20 minutes, straight after the substitutions, it was just all over the place.
It was all exactly. And I think looking forward, and Ricky, thank you again. Everyone, thank you for the chat. We really appreciate it. I'll let Ricky go because he has his family here. I've already taken plenty of his time. But going forward, what are your expectations for this season? I think I saw a question there about that. Let's see. I think there was a question there about, will we finish top 5 or something like what do you think about this season?
If we keep playing sensible football and show a bit more patience, the way we're playing at the moment, and again, I know I'd love us to play with a centre forward, and maybe we will. But I also think if we're going to play with a centre forward, the way it looks at the moment for me, it shouldn't be Mason Mount who's not playing. It should be Bruno who's not
playing.
Should be,
of course,
we need
of
to
course.
be moving the ball about more smoothly. I mean, Zirkzee looks after it well. He passes it well.
Yeah.
You know, he looks a lovely footballer. So the more players we've got in the team who are looking to do those simple things, the better.
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm still hopeful.
Yeah.
That we have got, and I do think it's got a lot to do with Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, I am still hopeful that we're going to play more solidly and more defensively. And when I say defensively, that doesn't mean that we can't score just as many goals.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that.
Right.
Doesn't mean that, not one little bit.
Right.
We don't score enough goals anyway, do we? Temi?
No.
57 a season for 3 seasons.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, honestly. And I don't think people think our forwards are undroppable. It's baffling.
Score goals.
Right, and we can't score goals. But no, I'll Ricky, thank you so much. I'll let you go now. This has been fantastic. Hopefully, I can get you on the channel again. This has been so much fun. This is the first episode of the Wavy Red Show, guys. We're gonna be doing more. I think I got the second guest lined up for you guys. It's gonna be another legend, another Man United fan legend. So, Ricky, thank you so much. Appreciate the chat, guys. Make sure for those watching back, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're pushing for 600 subscribers now. So let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do in the next couple of weeks, guys. But again, Ricky, thank you. I appreciate it. And everyone, we will talk soon.
Appreciate it, Temi. All the best, mate.